Hi there, everybody. Welcome to the show. Frank Tomaino is our guest, and when we ever have Frank in studio, we talk about local history. He's our go-to guy for all that kind of thing. Frank, of course, continues to write about history for the Observer-Dispatch. He's been doing that for many years. How many years, Frank, on just the history column?
The history column, 1968.
68.
50 years.
Yeah. Who, isn't that, oh, there you go. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Whose idea was that you do a history column?
We had, at that time, we had what we called a help column.
Mary Kendrick?
Mary Kendrick's did
Yeah.
it on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on page 3, the section page. So we had an opening for the column on the left. And I suggested it to Tony Vella and Gil Smith. And they said, go ahead. And I started doing it, and that was it. And then later, a couple years later, Richard Benedetto came aboard, and he had the Thursday column, Around and About, it was called.
Right.
So 5 days a week. But you know, I always enjoyed local history, and I had all this information. And although Paul Draheim, who was with the press, wrote many great columns on local history, but the OD did not have, except for Sunday, they used to run an old photograph.
Now, refresh my memory, was Paul Draheim writing for the Daily Press?
No, for the press. He was the state editor for the Daily Press.
Right.
And at that time, the press was the morning paper and sold most of its copies down the valley in Rome and some locally. But the OD was the Utica, New Hartford, Whitesboro local paper. But Paul Draheim, and I remember when I started my column for the OD, I said, gee, you know, he's been doing it for so long with the press. I hope he doesn't feel offended. The first column appeared, and he wrote me a nice note. Anything I could do to help, I never forgot that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I never forgot that. Yeah.
Well, it was it H. Paul Draheim?
H. Paul Draheim.
What was the H?
Boy, I don't know.
Yeah, I know.
But I remember he used to number his columns.
I know, I like that.
And when he hit 1,000, the governor would always write.
Yeah.
They'd have a little thing that when he hit 2,000. So
the other thing he did too, oftentimes, was do a column on how a place got its name.
oh yeah.
And
right.
I found those very interesting.
Right. Yeah. Well, he did. He was just a good historian. Plus, one time he did a series. It took about every Sunday for 2 years. This is for the Sunday OD. The press used to write for the Sunday OD. And he took a church, all denominations, and wrote the history of, and I'm talking about a detailed history, the research he might have done. He would take, for instance, the New Hartford Presbyterian Church, from the very beginning to the end, write everything about it. And for 2 years, so more than 100, and I've got most of them, and just filled with information. He had all the pastors, and just did great work. You know.
Did any of his columns end up being put in a book, Frank?
You know, I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't remember that either.
I know Harold Whittemore, who was the Sunday editor. He put some of his columns. I forget what he called his column, but he put that into a book. But you know, as far as I know, Paul never did. He should have, because great stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
so unless you clipped them out, which I've got many of them.
Now, going along that, we're going to talk in a minute about a project you just got done doing for the OD, but going down this line a little bit further, Dave Beadle put his stuff into a book.
Oh,
yes?
sure, yeah. Up Old Forge Way, and he wrote a Sunday column, and it wasn't always about history, but many of them were about local history. And then, you know, he traveled up north a lot. He would write about the Adirondacks. And
he came down, he did, what was the, you'll know the title, it escapes me, on Oriskany Creek. He started along the Oriskany or something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
And
the only one I can, up Old Forge Way.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he would, and I think he wrote 4 or 5 books similar to that.
Yeah.
And then he went to Albany with the Gannett News Service.
Yep.
And sometimes I think, and they're all forgotten, you know, unless you clip them out or have the book, He was an excellent writer.
John McMillan, the late John McMillan, who was publisher.
God bless him.
Yeah, he was a great publisher, great guy. Loved Dave Beadle's writings.
Yeah.
And I remember he told me once, why don't you get yourself a canoe and go to the...
Oh, I remember that. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So he...
You retraced all the...
And say how things are going today. But those were the ones that stand out in my mind. I'm trying to think if there was any others.
When John McMillan became publisher, I was city editor. He called me down in his office, and you know, sometimes you get publishers who are interested in history or some who are not interested in history.
Right.
He was interested in history, graduate of Hamilton College, and he said, I want to detach you from service for a couple of weeks. I want you to do a booklet on the Erie Canal. I said, wow. And so I went upstairs and told my boss, Tony Vella, who didn't, you know. But I did one on the Erie Canal, then trolleys, the railroads, but he was interested in histories, and there was about 10 of those booklets that have been published. But a lot depends on if you have
and those were very strong on pictures too, those booklets that you did.
Oh, well, yeah. In fact, I think we did one together on downtown Utica, I think.
Yeah.
It makes it nice when you have, your boss loves history too. And I've been fortunate, you know, to have bosses who love local history. And,
in fact, you got one now, Ron Johns likes history too. And
well, it was his idea to do Mohawk Valley milestones. And yeah, he loved it. Dave and I both loved local history.
And Mohawk Valley Milestones, you just wrapped that up, right, Frank? You did what, 3 a week?
There were for 7 weeks, 21. He wanted to do 7 weeks, and he ran on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And he said he wanted them about 12, 15 inches long, but he said if you have to go longer, go ahead. Yeah. Which is nice when you get...
In fact, that's what we're going to talk about when we come back from the break, those Mohawk Valley Milestones. Frank Tomaino is our guest. Short break, right back.